Graphic design? Can you make a living at that?
3, 2, 1, fun.
Welcome to Design Futures, a show about what happens after design school. I'm Chris St. Cyr, and my guest on this episode is Lesia Gribbin. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Lesia is a group art supervisor at Neon, an FCB health network company, where she focuses on pharmaceutical advertising for brands in the oncology, rare disease, medical screening, and type 2 diabetes areas. Previously, she's worked for agencies Win Stanley and Tracy Locke, where she designed projects for clients like Bud Light, Jose Cuervo, Sony, and Major League Soccer. And she is a 2014 graduate of the College of St. Rose. Welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Anytime somebody offers me the opportunity to talk about myself for 30 minutes, I'm usually keen to say yes. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, good. Then you just take it away. You just talk for 30 minutes and
Yeah,
I'll edit my voice in later.
I was born in 1992.
So the first thing I want to ask you, because we talked a while back, and it sort of relates to your Instagram name, Safari Lesh. Where are you right now? Are you like halfway around the world?
I'm in Brooklyn right now. I'm at my apartment.
Oh,
but
Brooklyn. But you seem to you like to travel. Is that right?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll get to the work stuff, but I think that seems to me, that's one of those exciting things about you. You love to travel, and you're always sharing those kind of images and those adventures and those travels. There was some photo, which is like the classic photo that everybody wants to live the life of, like you're in the pool, but on your laptop. I remember seeing that photo. Like, okay, so where's that photo from?
That was in LA. It was the first time I was able to travel since COVID. So I actually was working from LA, but was at like a bougie resort and
having fun and getting work done.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Where's some other places you've been?
I took my first trip to Europe when I was in high school, and then I kind of got the bug. And then I would typically take a big trip annually while I was in college, which my professors, I'm sure, hated.
Well, we should clear that up. I wasn't actually one of your professors officially. I mean, we were in the program together, but, so it didn't bother me.
Yeah, no, St. Rose has you're allowed to miss 2 classes before your grade decreases by a letter. So I would always be like, oh yeah, I'm going to be sick. Like, oh, I'm sick. And I would take like a big trip. I'm like an advocate for never getting sick. So I would just always use my sick days for travel. So while I was at St. Rose, I took a 2-week vacation to Indonesia in 2011. And then in 2012, I studied abroad for a semester in Florence. The next big trip I took was at my first job. I went to Australia for 2 weeks. Between jobs, I did like a yachting trip in Croatia, and I went back to Italy. I did Scandinavia solo. Throughout the course of my career, I've always been like an advocate for like work hard while you're at work, but relish in your vacation. And I've always taken advantage of using every vacation day possible to take really massive trips.
Yeah, you got to take them or you lose them. Well, some companies you lose them, others you don't. But I think that's important. That's one of the things that I've asked some people, and I think it's important for students to hear, like sort of taking care of yourself part. And that seems to be one of the ways that you take care of yourself, is just like getting away from work and getting away from where you live too, like going someplace around the world.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I feel I come back from a vacation and I'm a better creative having had that experience. It like fulfills me personally. As much as I love to joke about being, this irreverent traveler, it also does enhance me when I come back to work and
Sure.
Incites sort of the type of creative that I am. So I'm kind of unapologetic about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you should be. Maybe you're working towards, what you hear some of those creatives, Stefan Sagmeister's famous for it, taking every 7 years, taking the year sabbatical.
Yes. Yeah.
So maybe you're working way towards that. You're practicing right now, 2 weeks at a time. And then someday it'll just be a whole year of go and and do what you need to do to replenish, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think that that is like one of the nice things about COVID. Like we've proven that we are capable of being autonomous, in whereas like in the future, I think that there will be this autonomy from work where if I need to go to my managing director and be like, look, I want to travel, they'll give me a 5G hotspot and they'll be like, go do what you need to do, because as long as you're doing your job, you can continue to do that from wherever you need to be.
So what's a 5G hotspot, just to clarify what that is?
I mean, I don't actually really know. It's basically it's basically like
It's magic.
it's basically just a device that you use through like a cell phone provider, and it looks like a Palm Pilot or something, and it just gives you internet access. So if you're in a country with bad internet, then you have this cell phone device that gives you internet access, and you're able to do your job like full capacity using that as like a hotspot.
So now I'm going to ask you, what the hell is a Palm Pilot? Because you're kind of dating yourself. I know what a Palm Pilot is. I'm surprised you know what a Palm Pilot is.
I actually have no idea what a Palm Pilot is.
Was it
before beepers?
It's after beepers, but it's not a cell phone, but it had everything else but the cell phone. There weren't apps, but you had like your calendar and all that paper stuff that helped you get organized. So when you are working like that, we're not necessarily working in the office, whether it's like working from where you live in New York or Los Angeles or wherever else, are you using like Slack? Are you using Basecamp? What tools are you using to communicate and work, whether it's at a distance or not?
So we use Teams primarily, which is a Microsoft Outlook program, and then Zoom. I think I find that Zoom is better for large meetings with upwards of 10 people.
So let's talk about a little bit about your job. The group art supervisor, that's the first time I've heard that phrase. What is a group art supervisor?
So I think group art supervisor might be very specific to working in pharmaceutical advertising. I think among the advertising industry, you go from being a senior art director right to associate creative director. Pharmaceutical advertising has basically created this interstitial layer where I'm not necessarily fully managing people, but I'm also not necessarily fully just doing design specific work. So I'm sort of this intermediate role where I am like held accountable for doing a lot of the day-to-day design work, but I'm also trying to help junior designers and managing them.
Okay, you are. So you are managing some people.
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, okay.
I'm managing junior art directors and interns. So it's sort of this layer where you're probably fulfilling your job as an ACD and doing the role of the day-to-day work, but you haven't necessarily at this point in your career had a lot of time managing people. So it's almost like this role where you start to get a taste of being a manager, giving people jobs, delegating, things of that nature, which I think a lot of creatives have a hard time with, frankly.
Yeah. How many people are, say, on the team that you work with?
Neon, the company I work for, is a company of 230 people. I would say creative is about half of that. So about, let's say, like 100 creatives. And then the teams vary in sizes. Let me backtrack a little bit. I think the advertising world is a bit different from the design and branding world, where when you work on a team in advertising, you're pretty much delegated to one client. You're not working on different brands or managing roles. You're pretty much hired in advertising to work on one specific brand. When you work in an advertising agency, depending on the scope of work for that brand, the teams vary drastically in sizes. The team that I currently work on is the biggest team at the agency. So it's a team of 50 people. And the creative team is about, let's say, like 25. And then the specific team that I work with is a team of about 10 creatives.
Okay. Did you start at this company at a lower level?
I did.
And so what was that level?
I started as a senior art director. I started working in advertising at Winstanley. So I started as a graphic designer there was my title. Then I moved to New York. I switched to Tracy Locke, where I was an art director. Then when I switched over to pharma, I got the senior art director title. And then since working at Neon, went from senior art director to an art supervisor, and now I'm a group art supervisor.
Okay.
And then the next title will be associate creative director.
You've got a number of levels behind you and a few ahead of you. So at your level right now, what's the salary range for something like that, which might be specific to pharmaceutical advertising?
I've always felt like pharma makes more money. And then I've heard other people on your podcast and I'm like, it sounds like it's generally the same. I started at about 35 to 40. And then in the course of moving to New York, switching to pharma, that salary is like quadrupled.
I mean, agency, pharmaceutical, digital, those salaries in those areas are higher than, some other areas in design for sure.
Yeah, I would say in general, my salary's probably on the higher end of the pay scale.
You talked about like you got a change in title when you move from company to company, but with that title change comes increase in salary and responsibility and different roles. So
yeah. And like somebody else that was on your podcast was kind of talking about this, where I think that like a trend in the industry is that as you increase in title, you're also decreasing in the design aspects of your job. So there is like a little bit of like a bell curve where you do get to a point in your career where you're like, how much higher do I want to go? Is the money versus the job worth it?
For some designers, they don't want the responsibility of managing other people. They just rather have the highest level they can achieve, but still do mostly creative work during the day, not managing other people or meetings and managing clients, things like that. So.
Exactly. What is it that you want your job to be? If you do creative, you can get to a point in your career where you're making enough money to sustain yourself that you might just be like, look, I'm good. Yeah. Or you might really want to progress in your career and get to that CD level or that managing director level. And that's great too. And you'll make a lot of money doing it. And it'll be great, but you will also sacrifice time and personal life. And if that's what you want to do, it's great. But I don't think there's any shame in feeling like I like my free time and I'm fine being here in this like a good role.
Yeah, there's just it's complex and everybody should approach it from their own, perspective of, the whole work-life balance thing.
I don't think recent graduates should be focused on money. I think do what you have to do to survive. Absolutely. Also just be humble, work hard, and be kind, and the money will come. If you're passionate about illustration or branding or packaging, you're going to work a lot harder about something you're passionate about. That's going to reflect in the work, and then the salary promotions will come naturally and you won't need to think about it.
You work in pharma, pharmaceuticals, everybody calls it pharma. I mean, you talked a little bit about it. Are there other things that are really different? Say like creative liberty, like how much flexibility is there in the creative aspect of the design? Does that differ between like pharma and say, consumer products?
Yes, the simple answer. So I started out working in consumer advertising. I started out, as you mentioned, working primarily with alcohol brands. I did shopper marketing, which shopper marketing basically means that you're creating experiences either at retail spaces or on premise, which means at bars or restaurants. The way that works is from a creative standpoint is basically you're conceptualizing a program idea, like let's do a text to win at retail idea related to whatever brand that you're working on. And then you're coming up with the visuals for it. So it's sort of like a twofold creative ask. That was primarily what I was doing when I was working in consumer. And then when I switched to pharma, it became very different because I now work on products that's B2B. So it's basically
which is
business
B2B.
to business.
Business.
So I'm no longer working on products that are consumer facing. I'm not working on things that are seen by the general public. I'm working on products that pharmaceutical reps go in and sell pharmaceutical products or drugs to doctors. And they're doing that by positioning these drugs based on clinical trials. For instance, I worked on like a type 2 diabetes medication for a long time. And so basically that drug went through clinical trials through the FDA. The projections and the results of that clinical trial projected certain data. So it's like data viz. And then we as creatives take that information, we create a campaign around the clinical data, and then we give those products to pharmaceutical reps to sell to the doctor.
So it's a lot of data visualization.
It is, yeah.
And how is it presented? Is it interactive, like on a tablet? Is it like pamphlets or print? Or how does that get to the doctors or the audience that it's being sold to?
So usually our core piece is something that's delivered on an iPad. It's called an IVA. A pharmaceutical rep comes in with an iPad and gives an interactive experience. It also exists on a website that's geared towards doctors. There's like an interstitial page where you have to be like, yes, I am an HCP. And then that data is delivered. And then it's also tactics like physical print pieces that are left behind at the office, emails, banner ads, convention tactics. Among the HCP community, there's a lot of conventions that happen throughout the year. So there's a big part of our job is coming up with a physical space and creating compelling, engaging activities that happen person to person. It becomes like experiential design.
Within the context of a convention, a conference, or like, so in a booth kind of setting?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So if you can imagine going to Las Vegas and being in a convention hall with 40 to 60 booths, we're just figuring out how to create a compelling booth.
So I want to show some work from pharmaceuticals. There it is. Okay, there's your pharmaceuticals.
Wait,
right? There's nothing there.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So you know, people, if you're not watching the video version of this, like, so that's something that, you know, we were talking about before we got on here about, you do all this visual work, but you can't show any of it, you know? So there's this interesting aspect of your job that you're creating visuals that you can't like put in a portfolio, or you can't like show in certain instances, like our conversation right now. But so can you talk about why that is and how you work around that as a creative person? If you had to, like, if you were gonna you know, move to a different company, and like, how would you show this work, or why can't it be shown?
When you're selling these drugs to HCPs, there's a ton of legal copy that needs to be associated with any visual that you create. And therefore, I think there's just like a company restriction around people putting branded work on their personal websites, because it's just a legal liability. If you were to ever make a claim about a drug without the appropriate legal safety information attached to it, that brand would be in huge trouble. I think that people that are looking to leave or like are trying to put their portfolio online, I think if you password protected it, that would be fine.
You could hide it and then send
the
login information to a specific person rather than just anybody. Yeah.
Right. If we were to meet for lunch, I could tell you exactly what I work on, but because this is potentially living online, and God knows who's going to send it to who, because I'm so engaging and everyone's going to want to share this. You know, without the ISI on the brand, I can't just like say the name.
Right. Yeah. And that's not specific to pharma, although there's a lot of that. I've heard, like at 2 Communique, we've done work for certain bigger clients that they have that restriction too. You can show it individually, but you can't put it on your website and kind of, and you can't promote it either. You can't like put it in a newsletter. Hey, we worked on this project, or enter it into competitions, things like that. So let's take a look at some of your visual work. So some of your portfolio. So this is not what you're currently doing.
Okay, yes, but it's work that I have done in my
Right.
life.
So this is Sony. What's the Sony project here?
When I was still working in consumer, so this was still Tracy Locke, one of our clients was Sony. They have an experiential space in New York. It's called Sony Square, and it's essentially a more experiential storefront. For their holiday campaign, we were trying to get people to come into the storefront. We did a social media campaign showcasing Sony products in the holiday space. So we created these animations and holiday visuals that were using Sony products as the key components of holiday graphics.
Okay. So, and then there was this other one, the
So, yeah,
Passengers.
so at the
movie?
time that we were working on it, Passengers was a movie that came out that Sony was affiliated with. And so we did a whole Passengers experience at the storefront. We created this event where people could go and have a Passengers style event at the storefront, and then their ticket to the event they would put into a raffle and they could win entry to get a free movie experience to watch the movie. It was kind of fun because we created the invite, which was almost felt like a design school project where they were like, design this space themed invite.
Yeah, that does sound like a school project. Right?
Yeah, it
That's
was
something I would give.
No, I know, it was awesome. I remember they gave it to me. I was fresh out of college at the time and I was like, hell yeah. And then we got to work with a caterer and design space themed drinks and like hors d'oeuvres and stuff. So this was actually really fun. Experiential design can be really fun because you're just basically thinking about what's the best party I've ever been to.
Oh yeah.
Creating with like a thematic and coming up with all the elements. So that was essentially what we were doing. So we designed the invite and then we had social posts, we created the internet invite. And then actually Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence, who are the stars of the movie, also came and did an event where they showed up and surprised a local charity organization of kids. So it was kind of cool. So we captured all of that content on video. And then that was also part of Sony's social posts.
And then you have this other editorial, fashion photography. What is this? Is this associated with your agency work or is this a separate project?
Yeah, no, it's separate.
So what is your involvement in here? Are you taking the photos, you styling, or what are you doing everything? What when you say the fashion editorial, what part are you working on?
So there's two components I would say to fashion art direction. There's campaigns for brands, which are like proper advertisements. And then there's editorial fashion, which is basically publications like Vogue or Harper Bazaar or, you know, any high gloss magazine that you can think of that's doing fashion stories. And, you know, there's art directors on each side of that. And so art directors are basically concepting that and telling a story, but they're working very, very closely with the stylist and the photographer. Photographers usually have their own look and feel. And so as an art director, you basically start out telling a fashion story by coming up with a concept. For this one, it was basically like, I did this fashion story in Montreal. So Montreal is kind of like an interesting city where there's a very old town, but there's also a lot of modernity to it. So we tried to emulate that through the fashion story, where we tried to take elements of clothes and garments that were old world, but there was some sort of twist and modern take on something that felt kind of old. So we started out by that being the concept. And then you hire a photographer that sees that vision and has the look and feel that kind of emulates that storytelling component of it. And then you hire a stylist. Stylists are amazing. They have an encyclopedic knowledge of brands, like the story behind every brand, every look and feel from every season of those runway shows. They do a pull of clothes that enhance that story. And then you go out and you shoot it.
Like you said, it's very different than what you're doing now or any agency work. Yeah. So it's good to stretch and try something different, and it might, some aspect of it might come back and influence something you're working on in the future.
Yeah, definitely.
we've talked a lot about sort of where you have been after St. Rose. So let's talk a little bit about that. As I mentioned before, you were not like an actual student, we'll say, in one of my courses. We kind of overlapped just for a little bit because that was my first year there and your senior year.
Mhm.
But you were in the program,
The way you
and
phrase it makes it sound like I was never just
No,
like in class.
you shut up once in a while.
Yeah.
No, the true statement for me is like, I never saw you in class, Lesha. You were never in class. I mean, that's the truth,
That's hilarious.
because I only taught one group of seniors in your year, and it was only in the fall. And
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
and
So
there
you
was-
like you don't even remember seeing my face on campus.
no, I probably saw your face more at 2 Communique because
Mhm.
we should mention you did an internship there.
This is a tangent, but this is kind of funny. I feel like most art students are night owls. They will stay up until 3. They will wait until 4 a.m. the night before a project is due to start it. I am the exact opposite. I was in Picotte every single day at 6 a.m. I was typically the first one there.
At 6 a.m.
Yes, and I would do 2 to 3 hours of work before my first class.
Huh.
Like there was one day I like sliced my finger open before anyone was there. And I sliced it with an X-acto blade and I was like, don't faint, don't faint, don't faint because nobody's here to help you.
You were the only one in the building. Nobody
I
was
was
there.
the only one. It would be pitch black in that building. Like most of the time I was there working on projects.
That is unusual. I would agree with that. Like most college students in general, I would say are, it's at that point in your life. It's easier to stay up late than it is to get up
Yeah,
early.
most people. I would be there at 6 a.m. every day.
That's definitely impressive and different. So were you in bed like asleep at 9 p.m. or 10 p.m. at
No,
night?
I was
Oh.
out with all of those people at 4.
Oh, just getting 3 hours of sleep. That's
Yeah, I
it.
didn't sleep in college. I did not.
Oh no, you got to get sleep. That's part of your health. Before you got to St. Rose, how did you get to St. Rose? What was life like before that? Were you an artsy kid? Were you into fashion as a teenager? Like what led you to St. Rose to study graphic design?
I think I was always an artsy kid, but I was never a great artist. I was never a phenomenal drawer. I'm still a terrible drawer, to be honest, but I was good at art and I was like creative. I was a dancer. My mom made all my costumes. I loved like Project Runway and America's Next Top
Who
Model.
doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't? Like
Who doesn't love Project Runway?
Yeah, I love fashion reality TV. I think I always loved fashion. I always loved art and design. Like I always knew I was creative. I would be a great creative, but I never felt like a good artist.
Right.
So I remember being like, I'm going to be a graphic designer before I even knew what that meant. At one point, somebody was like, oh, you don't have to be a fine artist. You can just be a good designer. And I was like, oh yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people think.
The crazy thing is like somebody said that to me when I think I was like in 1st or 2nd grade. I was already like, I want to be an artist. And they were like, well, maybe sidestep. So I don't think it ever came naturally to me, to be honest. I think I was decent at it. I mean, I have a fine arts degree, but I had to work really, really hard to be a good artist in order to be a good designer.
Yeah, I mean, I've said this, it's documented on another episode of this podcast. Like, I don't think it's natural anyway. I think we all have to work hard at things that we really enjoy, and if you really enjoy drawing, you'll spend more time drawing and that will make you better at it. Or typography. If you really like the nuance of typography, then, and, the more you practice, the better you'll get, I have a hard time with that.
I'm maybe not giving myself enough credit. I was good at art, but I think what I've always loved about graphic design is that it's not just being a good artist. It's about being a problem solver. You're just thinking critically, which I think is like such an amazing skill. I think if you come out of St. Rose art program, you know how to think conceptually. I think that that's what is so fun for me about design, where it's just like every day is a problem.
Yeah.
Every day is a hassle and hectic, and you're just like, what's the smartest way I can overcome this obstacle? That's a blast, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like,
I would agree. When you're a young designer, you just, yeah, I just want to make, I love making stuff too. There's a lot of, students and young designers like that's the only thing, right? Like I'm going to make stuff. I'm going to make this thing look cool and awesome and the best thing anybody's ever seen. But at some point when you move through your career and you get to, work on a different role within a project, and the thinking, the design thinking, the creative thinking is your responsibility. And when you can see that happening and when you see it successfully, then I think a lot of designers, then they see like what designers really do. It is not, I don't know, is it that shade of blue or is it that shade of blue? Is it that sans serif typeface or that sans serif typeface? Those are things that we do, but I think the real work and the real value that we bring to the business world is what you're saying is problem solving, is creative problem solving. And then we have to go execute it and design it and produce it.
Definitely. And I think I'm speaking with my advertising hat, where I think a lot of people that you've had on that are illustrators or running their own branding agencies or things of that nature, like it is a much more illustrative or creative career where they do have to think about those shades of blue or like, the like nuance of that stroke or things like that, where I never felt that was my strong suit. As a design student, I always felt like, I think I'm pretty conceptual. I think I have good ideas that solve a problem in a compelling and interesting way. And I think advertising felt like a good fit for me because concept is key in advertising. I'm never going to be the best photographer. I'm never going to be the best illustrator, but I can also think through an idea and hire those people to do that work. And I can manage them and tell that story.
Right.
But for me and my role right now, it's all about the concept. And for me, that feels like the perfect fit.
We were talking about St. Rose. What was the community like there? Like building relationships or collaborating or working in a school setting? Was there anything that you did in school or in that time there that kind of made you think about how you might want to work in the field or who you might want to work with?
Yeah, I mean, I took applications with Kelly and like
with Kelly. Who's Kelly? I don't think I mentioned Kelly. You tell everybody who Kelly is. I think I have. But
Kelly, your wife.
Kelly, my wife, my partner in life, my partner in
Am I allowed
business.
to say that publicly?
Yeah, sure. I mean, people, some people don't know. Most people do know. She's the creative force behind To Communique. So,
I mean, I took her class. She was an adjunct at St. Rose. In that class, we did an infographic, we did a magazine, and then we designed currency. And I just feel like her and I just rocked, all of the feedback that she gave me. I was like, yep, got it. She was critical. She would be hard on me, but I never took it personally. And I never felt like it was mean spirited. I was just like, oh yeah, that totally makes sense. So I really appreciated every critique she gave me. And I just feel like we worked super well together. So then my senior year, I felt comfortable being like, hey, can I come work and do an internship at your agency? And she said yes. And so I did I think it was like my spring semester, senior year, I came and worked at To Communique as an intern once or twice a week. And I feel like she always understood that a lot of the To Communique clients it's like setting type and making information digestible. And that always made sense to me because I think I am a pretty analytical person. So like designing infographics and setting type and sort of like the nitty gritty of that, and then combining it with making really illustrative and beautiful visuals and just making information digestible to people and making it beautiful. I just feel like her and I always got each other, and I feel like that's kind of what I do now.
Well, that's good to hear. We'll make sure she hears that. All right, it's time for the pop quiz.
Okay.
Are you ready? Did you study?
I actually before this I was watching everybody else's. I've seen every episode.
Oh, that's good. So, well, some questions are the same. Some are specific for you.
Okay.
Okay, so world traveler, favorite place you visited?
It's hard. They're all different. I loved Australia, but Florence wins because I lived there.
Work beverage.
Seltzer.
Oh, one of those fancy waters. After work beverage?
For the most part, I drink like hard seltzers, like White Claws.
Okay, so it's seltzer or hard seltzer? Just seltzer.
It's not like a big distinction.
All right, sketchbook, blank or gridded?
Blank. I
Blank.
mostly write copy.
Oh, free form.
Mhm.
So, considering your interest in fashion, what is your favorite article of clothing?
That's a good question, actually. Like t-shirt, jeans, or like a specific article of clothing?
Either one. Pick one. Yeah, I don't know. Do you have like a
Okay.
favorite sweater, kind of thing?
Okay, yeah, okay. So actually, this is a good answer. Okay. So there's this kind of like hip brand that's based out of LA. It's called Online Ceramics, and they do these weird graphic tees, and they're very overpriced and very annoying. Only loser swag boys wear them, but I love them. And so they did a t-shirt for like a John Mayer, Leon Bridges collab, which I bought the shirt and then I had my friend tie dye it. So I have a one of a kind Online Ceramics, and that's my favorite shirt.
All right. Wow, it's got a good story.
Yeah.
The favorite article of clothing should have a good story, right? Should have good history. Oh.
There's a pic of me wearing it on my Instagram.
Oh, I think I've seen that one. I'll have to go look at it again. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
like a pink, white, purple tie-dye something. Okay. Yeah.
There was multiple levels of that tee. And it's like so annoying.
It's so annoying. But you embrace the annoying aspect of it.
Yeah.
You have
Everyone
to.
loves me for it.
Music of genre you design to or you play at work.
Oh my God, I was scared. So I like normally listen to Spotify Discover. I like James Blake a lot. I like Tame Impala, The Weeknd. It's
Okay.
like mostly like pop, electronic.
Yeah. All right. Laptop or desktop?
Laptop with a second monitor. Yeah.
How do you back up your files?
I don't. My manager despise me.
That's not. I have to edit that out. No, you back up your files.
I back it up on like our server.
All right, good answer. All right, so in my research, I saw that you went to London when you were in school.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a favorite moment of the graphic design trip to London?
We went to Pentagram in London, which was amazing. Actually, if anyone's going to London, go to the Design Museum, which is like this really obscure, random ass small museum. It's like near Notting Hill. And you basically just go through this tunnel of every random thing that's ever been designed, from like board games to Kellogg's to the Smiths album. And it's just like such a fascinating time suck. And
Yeah.
you could easily spend 5 hours just enjoying everything from the Spice Girls to Kellogg's. It's the best place in the entire world.
It's pretty insane. I do remember going in there.
Is
It's
that
like
what it's called? Is it called the Design Museum?
that one that you're talking that's the design packaging museum, maybe, or design packaging museum, something like that.
I don't even know what it's called.
The design museum is more like modern, like it's a bigger museum.
Yes,
The one you're
right.
talking about is smaller and it's a lot of packaging design. So, but it is right. There's only one way in, and you have to. It's like a just wall to wall, like visual overload of like type and image and color, and it's just
It's the most insane. It's like, if you can imagine being like a 5-year-old in a fun house, that's like how I equate being like a junior design student in this place. It's insane. The packaging museum, which is psychotic. It's amazing.
All right, that's the last question. Final thoughts for all those aspiring designers that may or may not want to work in pharma.
Work hard, have a plan, but always be ready. When the plan goes to shit and everything derails, just be willing to go with the flow and figure it out, because life is full of obstacles, full of things not going your way, and just be ready to be like, you know what, I'm gonna go on to the next thing and it's gonna be okay.
Thanks so much. It was great catching up, great talking to you. I can't wait to see where you travel to next. We'll keep an eye on your Instagram. See what beach or city skyline ends up there, or what pool or hotel.
Yeah, I can't wait either.
All right, I'll see you later.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Wipe those tears from your eyes. Wipe those tears from your eyes. From your eyes. From your eyes. I know you've been crying. Wipe those tears from your eyes. I know you've been
We learned a few things from Lesia.
Wipe those tears from your eyes.
One, enjoy your time off.
Wipe those tears
Travel,
from your eyes.
visit someplace you've never been. Number two, if you're going to slice your finger open early in the morning or late at night in the studio, make sure you're not alone. And finally, number three, find a good mentor. Thanks to Lesia Gribbin of Neon. If you have any comments or questions for me or any of the guests, please leave them in the comments and subscribe so you can catch the next episode of Design Futures. Until next time, go learn something. Your future depends on it. Thanks for listening. See ya.